Hello and welcome to Lush Mama Life, where we talk about all things related to life as a stay-at-home mom. Today I thought that I would talk about my daughter's speech delay and how we managed to resolve that naturally. So let's just start from the beginning. So after I delivered in the hospital, they tested her for all the things. They tested her ears, her nose, her eyes, everything. Everything came back perfect. And she had to stay in the NICU for about 5 days because of a blood incompatibility issue. She tested Coombs positive. I'm not exactly sure what that means still, but it means that a lot of babies get jaundice. It just meant that she had to stay under the lights longer than normal because our blood types were different. So anyway, after about 5 days, we brought her home and everything was perfect. She was this perfectly healthy baby and we were absolutely thrilled to have her home. And that was that for a while. And then a few months later, I noticed that she was just a really quiet baby. I mean, not a lot of cooing or babbling or just sounds in general. She was just very quiet. And I didn't think much of it, I mean, I'm a new mom. What do I know? I don't know anything. I don't know what's normal, what's not normal. So I didn't really pay much attention to that. And then at about 6 months, she said mama. And we were thrilled. She finally said her first word. She said mama. And for about 2 days, it was just mama, mama, mama. But then that just stopped and she never really said it again. I mean, she said it since, but at the time she just stopped saying it. And she didn't say anything for months after that. And she was really quiet when she was playing, didn't make a lot of sounds. And I started noticing other kids would make sounds like crashing sounds or just sounds. And she was just silent. I mean, no sound at all out of this baby. So we were coming up on a year old. And I asked her pediatrician about it. And she says, well, we don't really worry about, speech delays or anything like that until they're 2. And every baby's different. And she'll speak when she's ready. And I thought, yeah, I guess. But I don't know. I was still I just had this weird feeling that there was something not right because she understood absolutely everything. I would tell her, to pet the kitty and she would go and pet the kitty, and I would tell her to throw something and she would pick it up and throw something. I mean, she followed directions and she seemed to understand everything. She was pointing at things and she could follow directions. She understood everything. So she just wasn't talking. And, I found a YouTube channel for a speech therapist. Her name was Adrienne. I'll link her channel down below. It was amazing. Her channel is called Learn with Adrienne, and she just had a bunch of tips and advice on how to encourage your children to talk. So I started doing all the things, like she encouraged us to, when reading to our kids, to be really interactive with the books, to get them and repetitive, to get them to repeat some of the words. So for example, if I was holding a book that had a child on a rocking horse, I would go rock, 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 rock. Or if there was a door, I'd go knock, 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 knock on the door, knock, knock, knock. And so a lot of repetition. She recommended repeating certain lines, and then by the time you got to the end of the line, to stop, and then maybe the child would say the end of the line. You know what I mean? So for example, there was this thing I used to do where we'd be in the playroom playing, and I would say, fall down, go, boom. Fall down, go, boom. Fall down, go. And I was waiting there for her to say the boom, and she's looking at me like this, and I'm like, okay. And she's like, but she didn't say the line. So, but anyway, we kept doing the things. And then at about 14 months old, I just started noticing at play dates, all the other kids were saying things. They were saying ball, dog, mama, whatever. I mean, they were talking, they were saying things, and she hadn't said anything. And then finally one day she said, this, like this. And I went, yes, this. So she said this, and she said that for a couple days, and then it kind of started turning into ish. So instead of saying this, like this, she would say ish, ish, ish. And that's all she said for the longest time. I took her to the pediatrician, and I'm like, I'm really concerned because she's just not saying anything, and the doctor's like, well, we don't really worry about it until they're 2, but if you want, you can go to a speech therapist. So I made an appointment with a speech therapist, and we went, and we only went for about a month. So once a week for about a month, and she didn't really tell me much. The first appointment we went, she just kind of observed her playing, and it was just really quiet, and we just kind of watched her play for half an hour. And then when the appointment was over, I said, so what do you think? She's like, oh, I don't know. We'll just observe her for a little while and see how that goes. So every week we'd go back, and the second time she says, it's probably best if you stay out here in the waiting room, and then I'll observe her. So we did that for a few weeks, and she didn't really say anything. She didn't really tell me what she thought or what was going on or anything. The one thing she did say when I was in there with them was, is she always this quiet when she plays? And I said, yeah. Is that not normal? And she went, So she didn't say anything, you guys. It was kind of frustrating me because she wasn't really telling me much. But then one day I came across a YouTube video from this Canadian woman who was like a lifestyle vlogger, and she had 2 young boys, and her youngest son was dealing with a speech delay. And so in this one particular video, she was vlogging, and she's like, okay, we're going to get an appointment for a speech therapist. But here in Canada, you can't get an appointment with a speech therapist until you go through a hearing screening. But I already know he can hear everything perfectly because he understands everything. But we're just going to go so we can get the appointment with the speech therapist. So they go, and then she comes back and she said, all right, we just got back from the hearing screening and he failed. So we're going to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor to see what's going on with his ears. And I thought, oh, that's weird. I guess you could still have a problem with your ears even though they're understanding everything. So I just had this weird gut feeling that there was just, everybody was like, oh, leave her alone. She'll say something when she's ready. But you just have that kind of feeling. So I just had this feeling that there was something going on maybe with her ears. So we took her back to the pediatrician, and I asked for a referral to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. She's like, oh, we don't really worry about that until they're 2. But I happen to know in my area, just from mom groups that I'm in on Facebook and stuff, that it was really hard to get an appointment with an ear, nose, and throat doctor because they were booked up like a year in advance. So if we waited until she was 2 and then had to wait another year to go see the doctor, that's a lot of language to miss out on for a little baby. You know what I mean? And so I didn't want to do that. So I was kind of insistent. I'm like, can you please just get us an appointment with an ear, nose, and throat doctor? And she says, yeah, we'll I'll give you a referral, but let's check your ears. And so she looked and she checked her ears and she said, they look clear. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I still want to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. She said, okay. So I called the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they were booked 9 months in advance. So I made an appointment, but I asked them to call me if there were any cancellations. So me being me, I tend to be a little persistent, and I did call to follow up, not every day, but every other day. So every other day I called to just follow up and see if they had any cancellations. And after about 2 weeks, they called me and said, oh, we've got a cancellation. Do you want the appointment? I said, yes. So we booked the appointment, and we went down there, and the nurse came in and did some tests, and she failed the hearing screening. So she said, yeah, she failed. So let me go get the doctor. So the doctor comes in and she looks in her ears. She says, oh yeah, her ears are full of fluid. And I said, how's that possible? The pediatrician looked and said that they were clear. And she said, well, sometimes pediatricians don't know what to look for. They're not really trained in this specific thing, but it's really common. And she said that most parents don't really know about this issue because it usually resolves itself on its own, because apparently the eustachian tubes, the tubes that drain from the ear down the throat, aren't mature in children until they're about 9 or 10 years old. So, especially after they have a cold or a sniffle or something like that, it can fill up with fluid. And she said a lot of parents aren't aware of this because it can come and go. Like sometimes it'll be, filled with fluid, and then the child will stop talking, and then it'll clear down, clear away, and then they'll start talking again. And that's kind of what was happening with our daughter. She would say something and then she wouldn't say anything for months. And then she would say a couple words and then nothing. And except the ish thing. And so I thought, interesting. So she recommended that we make an appointment to have a procedure done where they put like a little incision in the eardrum and put a tube in the ear to let the fluid drain out. So we made the appointment, and that appointment was 30 days away from that date that we were there. And so in the meantime, while we were waiting for the appointment, I started Googling and looking up things on how to drain the eustachian tubes naturally. And there was one guy, I don't know if he was a doctor or like a naturopath or something, I don't know. But anyway, he had a video about clearing the eustachian tubes, but this video was geared more for adults. He wasn't talking about babies or kids or anything like that. But he recommended just taking the bottom of the earlobes and then pulling them out and then wiggling the jaw and opening and closing the jaw. And you can kind of definitely feel some like movement going on around there. So I couldn't really get her to wiggle her jaw around, but she was still nursing at the time. So when she would nurse, you know, because babies make that like motion while they're nursing, I would just kind of tug on her ear while she was nursing. And then on the other side, I'd tug on the other ear. And then I came across another video where this woman was recommending essential oils and massage to kind of drain out the eustachian tubes. And if I can find the video, I will link to it down below because I can't remember exactly what the oils were that she recommended. I think it was like lavender and peppermint and one other one or something. But she said to dilute it with a carrier oil, like fractionated coconut oil or something like that, and to just dab a finger in the oil and then just put a little bit on the opening of the ear, not inside the ear, but like just around the opening. And then she said to put it in a roller ball and just kind of put some of the oil all around this jaw area, ears, and throat, and then just do some massage. So I did that a couple times a day. I would put the oils, you know, all around and then do the massage a couple times a day, do the ear tugging thing. And then the day before the procedure, she woke up and she had a stuffy nose. She had a bit of a sniffle. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't affect the procedure. So I called the doctors and said, you know, explained to them what was going on. And I'm like, is this going to affect the procedure? And they said, well, it could. It's probably best if we reschedule. So I said, okay. So I don't remember what exactly happened. I don't remember if we actually rescheduled or not, because this is a while ago. But the next day, her sinuses cleared up and everything ended up being fine. And then a couple days later, we were driving somewhere and she's back in the back seat in her car seat and the sun was just blaring through the windshield. And then she said, "Mommy, sun, eyes." And then she held her hands up to like block the sun. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she said a sentence. Like she went from saying nothing but ish to like a 3-word sentence, right? So I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then later that day, we were at the drive-thru at Roberto's taco shop to get some burritos. And she said, "Mommy, we get burrito and we go home. Okay? You promise, huh?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's talking in sentences, you guys.
Go home. Okay, Mama?
What's that?
And then a burrito and go home.
Yeah, we'll get a burrito and then go home.
Yeah, you promise, huh?
Yeah, I promise.
You promise, huh?
Yeah, I promise.
You promise. I heard you. You promise.
You hold me to my promise?
You promise.
Okay.
You promise.
And from that point on, it was just flowing. The sentences. She was having conversations with adults. It just talking, like crazy. It was crazy.
Actually, what I want,
What's that?
I don't know.
It's a pyramid.
Pyramid.
You gonna put that on your list?
Yep. It's exactly what I want.
It's exactly what you want?
Yep. Want that.
A
And
unicorn?
I use the Santa Claus.
You want it on your list?
Yeah, a pink one. Not a beautiful one, like that one. This pink one. And a turtle and a bunny.
What's that there?
What? I was a turtle with a unicorn and a mushroom.
Castle with a unicorn and a mushroom. What's this right here?
I don't know.
Is that a rainbow?
Yeah, rainbow. What are those?
I don't know.
Maybe I tell my daddy. I put a heart on a Santa Claus.
You gonna put them on your list?
Yep. I read that beautiful one, not made out of rock. I read this tell a beautiful one.
Oh, the beautiful one.
That is so pretty.
And it's made out of what?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you said it's made out of rock.
Rock. I read a donut on a hat and a submits.
What's this thing?
My yacht and I read that on my yes and that and that and that.
What's this?
A mushroom house.
A mushroom house. What is this?
A sandwich.
Sandwich? No, I think it's a taco.
A taco. I read the dinosaur.
Ah,
So I made another appointment with the ear, nose, and throat doctor to have her looked at again. And the doctor looked in her ears and she says, "Oh yeah, they've cleared up. I mean, there's a little bit left in the right ear, but they're almost completely clear. What did you do?" And I told her what I did, and she's like, "Oh, well, I don't think it's necessary to have the procedure anymore, so I guess we'll go ahead and cancel it." And I thought, okay, so that was that. We canceled it, and she has not stopped talking since. So there are obviously a myriad of different reasons why a child would have a speech delay, but the doctor did say that this was one of the most common because the eustachian tubes don't mature until they're 9 or 10, and depending on the shape of the baby's face, I mean, if they've got a rounder face shape, their tubes are more horizontal, So my cousin Matthew had a little girl who was about 3 years older than my daughter, and she wasn't talking either, and she was quite a bit older. And I explained to him kind of what had happened with us, and he thought, oh, maybe we should check her ears. So they went and checked her ears, and her ears were full of fluid. And a girlfriend of mine that I grew up with, her son, when he was about 2, she reached out and asked me what had happened with us, and I told her, and so she took him in, and he had fluid in his ears. So this is extremely common, you guys, and a lot of parents don't know about this because they either don't get into the ear, nose, and throat doctor right away, or if they do, and it's booked up a year in advance, sometimes it resolves on its own. Sometimes it doesn't resolve until a child is 9 or 10 when their eustachian tubes are mature, which is, I mean, that's a lot of language to miss out on, you know what I mean? So anyway, that is our story. That's how we resolved her speech delay naturally without any medical intervention. And if you guys like this video and found it helpful, please like the video, leave a comment down below. And if you're into mom-related content, lifestyle content, I do a lot of healthy recipes, mom hacks, kitchen hacks, health and wellness. We do some beauty and makeup products over here, product reviews, things like that. Then I would love it if you would subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye.